Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand on Film and another part of our MANIFF coverage for this year's festival. And this is looking at the 2021, going to be released in the UK in 2022 film Wolf. So Wolf is a psychological drama written and directed by Nathalie Biancheri. It's an international co-production of Ireland and Poland. It stars George MacKay, Lily Rose Depp, Paddy Considine, Eileen Walsh, Fionn O'Shea, and Lola Pettigrew. Now, George MacKay stars as Jacob. Jacob is a man who believes he is a wolf trapped in a human body. He's sent to a clinic by his family where he's forced to undergo increasingly extreme forms of curative therapies at the hand of the zookeeper played by Paddy Considine. Now, Jacob's only solace is the enigmatic wildcat played by Lily Rose Depp, with whom he roams the hospital in the dead of night. The two form an improbable relationship that develops into an infatuation. I'm going to play you the trailer of the film, and then I'm going to show you my review and a couple more clips from the film.
Once there was a place in the woods where they sent people who didn't fit into the real world.
Welcome, Jacob.
Species identity disorder can be cured so that a person who thinks themselves an animal can resume a happy, healthy, and rewarding life.
I want to do it. It's the best thing for everyone.
You're all gonna end up wonderful human beings.
They say the wolf and the wildcat are natural enemies. But they're wrong.
How long have you been here?
Since I can remember.
I'm putting you out of your misery.
We call him the Zookeeper. Keep clear of him.
Ever think of running away?
Only one person ever did.
I've always had this feeling, these instincts.
Stop. You're gonna get us caught.
I can't.
It's a cruel, cruel world.
Once upon a time, there was a wolf and a wildcat. I wanted to live happily ever after.
It's not just about surviving, but surviving is me.
Do you really think you can have a life with that boy?
But life is no fairy tale. Is it?
So I'm saying my goodbyes.
I'm running.
I'm running. Goodbye to my good side.
I'm breathing.
I'm breathing.
Do you want things to get worse for you?
I have no human form.
I have no human form. Jacob, what have they done to you?
So, as I mentioned, I watched this as I'm recording this now. So, I'm recording this on Sunday, the 13th of March. I watched this last night, Saturday the 12th, as part of MANIFF, as part of Manchester International Film Festival, where it was the opening night gala film. And it generated quite a substantial audience. Before the film, they showed us a couple of trailers for other films coming up in the festival. They then decided to show us a short film, which also starred George MacKay, called Find the Light, which was directed by Abdullah Khan, which was very interesting. And then we went into the film and then a post-screening Q&A. There's a couple of things to talk about. Obviously, the premise of the film is this idea of species disorder, that these people who have been admitted to this asylum are recognizing themselves to be animals. So obviously you've got Jacob, who believes that he's a wolf. You have Cecile, who believes that she's a wildcat. There's Rufus, who thinks that he's a German shepherd. Judith, who thinks that she's a parrot. There's a couple of characters who believe that they're a horse and a bird and a duck. And there's so many different characters that are going on in this film. And ultimately, I tweeted this straight afterwards. I don't think I've ever seen a film like this before, where every single actor is having to act as though that they are an animal, but in a way that they're not trying to parody something, they're not trying to pastiche something. I think the whole film in itself is an allegory, is a metaphor of mental health, of this kind of, Jake, who I went to watch the film with, he read it as a bit of a trans metaphor, in that people are trying to deal with not being themselves in their own body and kind of, coming to grips with that. And then the parents believing that they have to put them in this asylum for them to be cured, for lack of a better word. But then I think as well as the kind of striking cinematography and the visual images that, let's face it, are still with me right now, of George MacKay walking down corridors as if he is a wolf, of him howling, literally howling at the moon, and the other sort of behavioral tendencies that these actors are portraying as part of their characters are going to stay with you. But then on top of that are these extremely physical performances. So obviously, to begin with, George MacKay, very particular walk that he's had to look at with a body coach, which you mentioned in the Q&A afterwards. His shoulder movement was mesmerizing. So the way that he was kind of walking on his hands and the way that his shoulders were moving. And he's got this kind of skeletal frame, this muscular frame as well, where veins are sticking out and you can't help but kind of be in awe at what it is that he's doing. And then one thing that I found myself doing was thinking about the way that he was moving. Is he moving on all fours, or is he moving in any particular way? And there's a nice shot of him walking into a kitchen area where the camera pans out and you see that he's not actually moving on his knees, he's moving on his tiptoes. He's doing his best to kind of replicate that wolf type movement that clearly a lot of time has gone into. On the side of that, you've got Lily Rose Depp's character of Cecile, and she's hissing at him in times as a wildcat. So it's an extremely physical performance from everyone in the film. And I think if any kind of plaudits were going to be handed out, George MacKay's physicality in this role would be linked into this. I'm going to play you a clip of a interaction that happens on the roof of the asylum between Paddy Considine, it's not Paddy Considine's character, George MacKay's character of Jacob, and Lily Rose Depp's character of Cecile. And then I am going to talk a little bit about Paddy Considine just after this.
Do you work here?
Not exactly.
How do you have the keys?
I'm connected.
So you're a patient?
Not exactly.
How long have you been here?
Long enough? Too long.
Ever think of running away?
Only one person ever did. He was beaten to a pulp by local thugs and died of starvation in the forest.
That sounds made up.
It's not.
So that clip kind of illustrates both the geography of the asylum, which is wrapped around by a fence and barbed wire, so they're not letting any of these patients out, and Lily Rose Depp's character of Cecile, in that, Jacob's asking her how long she's been in there. Is she a patient? Does she work there? There's a weird sort of intrigue with her character as to, is she a patient? We don't really see her interacting with the patients as much as we do with Jacob, because Jacob is kind of, during the day, put in this room with all these other patients. She's kind of left to roam free a little bit. So there's a little bit of intrigue, especially with one of the other characters as well, about where her character fits in. Now, one character that I need to mention is the Zookeeper, played by Paddy Considine. Now, this performance is, I would argue, the best performance in the film. I think by the end of the year, once everyone kind of gets to see this and all that kind of stuff, and the Oscar ballots come out, and then we do those kind of alternative Oscars that everyone does where people are talking about best supporting actor, Paddy Considine is definitely going to be on my list. Now, he plays the Zookeeper, and he's this kind of almost, I was going to say almost like a Nurse Ratched type character, but I think it's a little bit more than that. He's very abusive, he's very aggressive, and he's very manipulative in the way that he does things. And I think that's very pivotal in a scene where Rufus, the German Shepherd, comes back into the asylum, and he sort of tells who I believe to be Rufus's mum to sort of go away into a different room. And then he begins his kind of physical, psychological abuse onto Rufus. And it's a very extreme performance. It's a very angry performance, a very aggressive performance. There are certain points in the film where you can't help but hate him, and you begin to feel uncomfortable about the way that he's treating these characters. Because at the beginning, there's a character who believes he's a squirrel, and he says to him, you go climb that tree then. If you think you're a squirrel, you go climb that tree. And this character literally injures himself. I won't go into too much detail to spoil it. He injures himself doing it. And the character, the zookeeper, pins this down and says, oh, he's just hurt himself. He's just cut himself. He might need a little bit of help. And I'm going to share another clip with you now, which is Paddy Considine's character, the zookeeper, taking Jacob to a wolf so that he can see a wolf. And essentially, in his kind of the way that he does his treatment is to make them wonder, to make them second guess this kind of human nature that's going on with them as to whether or not they believe that they're a wolf.
Is this you? This pathetic, flea-ridden beast? Answer me.
No.
But it's a wolf. One that has been trapped by man and will be killed by man. That's why we are the superior race.
Is that what you think a man is?
Yes, I do. Be careful, Jacob. When you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you.
You get a little bit of an idea there of Jacob's howl, George MacKay's howl, which is quite prevalent throughout the film. So ultimately, I came out of this, and Jake, who I work with and went to go and see the film as well, said to me, oh, I really enjoyed that. And I said, I did. It's bizarre is the word that I used, in that, as I tweeted, I don't think I've ever seen a film like this. It's got some strange tonal shifts. Right at the beginning, there was this kind of uncomfortable atmosphere in the cinema where people didn't know whether or not they could laugh of these actors mimicking these animal noises. It was a very strange sort of comedic style, very blackly comic to begin with, very darkly comic, but then it turns into much more of a serious psychological drama with the abuse that George's character of Jacob goes through and the other characters in the film. Like I say, it's nothing. It's not like anything I've ever seen before, and I think, if I'm honest, it might turn a mainstream audience off. That if you, for whatever reason, stumbled across this film on a streaming service, or if you went to the cinema and you saw that it was advertised for a time that you were close there and you weren't going in knowing what to expect, you probably would be turned off by it, I would say. But again, it's very, very interesting. I'm very intrigued to see where it goes next. I've just had a quick look, and it looks like it's getting a full UK release this coming Friday on the 18th of March. So you might be able to catch it in your sort of local art house cinemas. I can't imagine it getting a full, big kind of multiplex release, but I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested to see if a kind of audience picks it up somewhere down later in the year, again on a streaming service, or if any kind of awards traction happens from here. Because again, I do think the performances are very, very strong, and it is something interesting, which if you're into that and you fancy something a little bit different, by all means, go and check it out. So that was the first film of MANIFF that we're going to cover on the podcast. The second is going to be Bisping. So as I record that's tomorrow night on Monday, the 14th. I'm hoping to get there as soon as I possibly can after work. Obviously see Michael Bisping there in person, and then come back and review that, which will probably go up on Tuesday. And then after that, I'll be checking out Mindset as the kind of final film of this sort of period of coverage that we're doing for MANIFF. So in the meantime, you can help support Farrand on Film by following us on Twitter, Farrand on Film, and myself, Adam Farrand. You can go over to our sponsor, FOF, and use the code Farrand, that's FARRAND, for 15% off your order. And stay safe, look after each other, and we will see you next time.